A long time ago, on a comics page far, far away. Greetings and welcome to May the Panel Be With You, the Star Wars comic book show brought to you by the Punch-Up Entertainment Network. I'm your humble host, Mike Gargoni, and joining me, as always, the Suprema to my Varol, it is John Campbell.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, we learn all kinds of new titles in this one, don't we?
Yeah, I wish this guy was the head of some kind of jazzy a cappella group, but no, unfortunately, he's a slave-dealing monster man, the Suprema.
Yeah.
Suprema.
Boy, I gotta say, we are firmly in a whole bunch of slavery talk.
Yeah. Look,
You know,
it's
it's
one of those...
not unusual for Star Wars necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, let's dive right in. We are talking about issue number 69, nice, of the 1977 Marvel Star Wars comic, the original run, if you will. We have, this issue came out in March of 1983, mere months, a tantalizing few months away from the release of Return of the Jedi.
People are picking this up and the drool getting on the comics about that new Star Wars movie. We can't fathom. We're hyped for movies, but like this was a pre-internet time, and this is like one of the only major like franchises going. I just can't even imagine what it would have been like.
And a time where like you couldn't immediately rewatch these films, right? So like in the prelude to Return of the Jedi, we have, of course, like some re-releases of the first two Star Wars films, but it's not like you could just hop on Disney Plus or like drive down to Blockbuster and rent these things.
No, I'm trying to think like when was even and we can keep talking as I do this but like when could you even first buy Star Wars?
Like when was the first VHS release of Star Wars? I'm sure it was out at this point.
Yeah, well, let's see. Yes, end of 82 was the first time that the first movie was released on tape. Yeah.
So, if you're lucky, or in that age in which you could possess the mystical VCR, and for our younger listeners, that was a large box that you had below another large box, is what TVs used to look like. And you put a littler box, which was a tape that had like magnetic spooled kind of material in it that would have moving pictures that you would have to play inside that bigger box that would then show on the even bigger box.
But like Empire doesn't come out till end of 84, so you could conceivably own the first movie, but there was no way for you to watch Empire.
Right, except at like
after
screenings of theaters that like were showing it again before.
That was more common that they would have officially probably done a re-release of the two. Re-releases used to be a common thing. It used to be like Disney movies would play forever, right? You know.
Oh man, like I remember seeing Lion King well into my childhood.
Yeah, I mean yeah, exactly. It's a thing where it's like that's not really a thing now. Now it's a big discussion, right? Is that the theatrical run of a movie is so short a part of its life as a film now. It's crazy.
Right. Anyway, let's go over the creative team here real quick. It's a creative team we've seen before. It's Dave Michelini on writing. We've got Gene Day on pencils, Tom Palmer on inks, Glennis Ween, eventually Oliver on colors. We've got Joe Rosen on letters. We have a certain Louise Jones, eventually Simonson, as our editor, and a Jim Shooter as our Mandalorian protector. You know, Jim Shooter, that guy who protects so many things.
Oh yeah, man. His respect for lore and oh man, I can't even fake it. The guy ruined Marvel.
I didn't ruin it, but there was definitely an era of like,
let me say he put it in, well, he damn near ruined it. He drove out most of the talent and almost got the company sold, you know, but
was he in charge when they sold to Toy Biz?
Not when they sold to Toy Biz, but when Revlon bought them. People forget this. For a while, Revlon fucking owned Marvel.
Yeah.
I mean, not specific, but like the people who owned Revlon owned Marvel as well.
Sure,
it was under
sure.
that umbrella, like all corporate stuff. But yeah, he got them into some financial dire straits.
Scheinhard Wigs owned Marvel.
Well, I will just say, you can follow this, and I think we recommended it before. I highly recommend the MCU history book that I think it's Joanna Robinson wrote. But they talk about in there that, like, basically, I will just say this: if you go and dig into the deeps, the mistakes of Shooter lead to the Revlon purchase, which gives us Ike Perlmutter.
Yeah, and that's a big part of that history. Is the Ike Perlmutter of it all.
And we don't need to get into that because that's a whole thing. But yeah, just know that guy probably worse for Marvel than Jim Shooter, actually, in a lot of ways. But anyway, all right.
Yeah.
Back to
the book you're referencing is MCU: The Reign of Marvel Studios by Joanna Robinson, Dave Gonzalez, and Gavin Edwards.
Great book.
Yeah.
Great book if you want like all of the info about Marvel.
Yep.
Anyway.
But let's get into this issue. It is number 69, like I said. Turning on the book so people on YouTube
I gotta say, not only is it number 69, but we talked about this last week. The metal title of Death in the City of Bone.
Welcome to the City of Bone. This, John, is our first appearance of the Mythosaur. Kind of. Sort of.
I mean, yeah, they've built a city inside of the skeletal structure of. I don't think they don't ever say Mythosaur in this, do they?
Right, but the skull is the emblem that is on Boba Fett's shoulder, which is the skull of the legendary Mythosaur.
And this adds to a whole thing I keep asking about this comic, which is like, I don't know what documents they have from Lucasfilm. Like, do they know that they're doing that? Because I don't think they created the myth. Obviously, they are the emblem exists.
Mm-hmm.
But are they then expanding that out into the skeletal system, or is that somewhere in a document and they go, oh, we can use that to make the skeleton, and that can be where the base is? That's what I would be so curious to know, like, what they have, because there's stuff in the comics that will end up being said in the movies later. We talked about, like, the comics say Sith and the movies never do. But that's because that's in Lucas's documents.
Right.
There's no answer to questions, by the way.
I mean, there are some answers to these questions. Because the Mythosaur first appeared, like, as an image in this issue of this comic. Because it was just like a skeleton, but it does, like, have the shape of the Mandalorian sigil here. That year... in 2013, later on, we have the Bounty Hunter Code. Do you remember those, like, books that came out back in, like, the mid 2000s?
Absolutely. I mean, like any good Star Wars fan, anything that mentioned the words bounty hunter, I was all over.
So we have this article called The History of the Mandalorians. It comes out in 2005 that sort of, like, begins to codify, like, going back in time and saying, yes, this from this issue of Star Wars was a Mythosaur. And that sort of starts building up this, I don't know, idea.
Yeah, because, I mean, obviously it's a thing that, like, you know, I walk by people's cars in a parking lot and there's a sticker of the Mythosaur, right? Like, it's become one of the iconic images of Star Wars.
Right. Because it is like, oh, Boba Fett's cool. Boba Fett's got this thing on him.
What is
that thing? It's a Mythosaur.
When it's on people's shirts or stickers, do they even know it's a Mythosaur, or is it just Boba Fett?
Right. Most people, I think, just think Boba Fett.
Of course. And that's perfectly fine. We're not judging that.
Mm-hmm.
We're not here to be like, boy, these stupid fools don't know. Don't you know it's a Mythosaur, sir?
I mean, some of us are like that, but...
Oh, yeah. And they're flocking to a convention in your local city right now.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that the importance of the Mythosaur as, like, a thing in Star Wars canon... look, it got more important recently because of the last season of The Mandalorian, right? When it's tied in with all of this like lore and mythology that is now being built back up about Mandalorian culture. Thank you, Filoni and Favreau, for that.
Oh my God! I mean, obviously, I don't think. Let's just say, when you're looking at the broad spectrum of Star Wars fandom, and we've always talked about this, the idea that like Star Wars itself is a major mainstream thing. It's just how much you delve into it is where the like nerddom gets to. But how many people would even before those shows have even been able to say that's a Mandalorian? Probably, a good chunk of the Star Wars fan base, but probably a lot of people who love Boba Fett wouldn't have said that word. Now it's commonplace. My mom knows what a Mandalorian is now. I always go by my parents because they like pop culture but aren't gonna like dig in. So the fact that they can say that's a Mandalorian is wild to me.
Maybe this is me like uncovering myself as a fake fan. I'm struggling to remember though, and in Attack of the Clones, did they ever call Jango Fett a Mandalorian?
I think they do. But once again, I couldn't tell you where, but I think they do.
But because I know in the original trilogy, they never say Boba Fett, the Mandalorian bounty hunter.
Right. No, they don't. Yeah. I'm almost certain. I think, or at least I think, once again, and correct me, and I'm sure we'll hear from people. I have no doubt. But I think that at least Obi-Wan is like, it's a Mandalorian bounty hunter. Like he recognizes the armor at some point and calls it Mandalorian. I think. Once again,
Attack of the Clones, probably the second least rewatched Star Wars movie for me.
Well, if we're only talking about the 6,
I'm including all 10, no 11.
Then no, it's not for me, because that would be the movie I'm not allowed to talk about that I only saw.
Well, that's the least rewatched.
Oh, yeah.
Attack of the Clones is maybe second least rewatched for me.
I like Attack of the Clones over Phantom Menace.
That is we're allowed to have separate opinions.
I just think Phantom Menace has some cool shit in it, but it's a mess of a narrative. I think Attack of the Clones, while having some weak stuff, I find to be a more engaging narrative, and specifically because of that, actually, I really do like the Obi-Wan detective story part of it.
Fair enough.
No surprise to anyone who knows me and the things I like.
Yeah, you could spend 3 hours watching a Obi-Wan as neo-noir hero.
I'm like, why are we ever cutting back to Anakin and Padme? Just follow this guy. He's on a rainy planet. He's looking into shit. I just want to see him uncover some clues, man. Anyway, though, no, but I'm almost certain at some point Obi-Wan uses the word Mandalorian in conjunction with Jango Fett. I'm almost positive.
All of that is to say that the Mandalorian mythosaur, all of that lore is just purely, and again, we cannot stress this enough, based solely on the fact that people wanted to dig into a character who looked cool, and that was Boba Fett.
I do think it's definitely a case of, we know Lucas had a lot of documents and stuff, but I do think that Boba Fett may not have been as sketched in as it was like they were not prepared for, like, oh, people got a lot of questions about this guy. We better write some shit.
Right. And we know, like, the term Mandalorian Super Commando was thrown around by George Lucas in the same way that, like, the term Sith Lord is thrown around behind the scenes and, like, obviously in the novelization and original scripts. Like, there are terms that we have floating around in the background of the writing of these things that are never actually said on screen, but are still part of the lore. And fans, even at the time, would have recognized those things.
There's also a lot of words that I think he thought were cool words, but didn't have like fully fleshed out. But he's like, Mandalorian. What is that? Who is that? Is that Boba Fett? He may not have known that from the start, but he's like, ooh, that's a good word.
Again, I talked about last issue how like Mandalore was the placeholder name for what eventually became Alderaan.
That's sort of the thing, right? It's the same thing about the, we've talked about that forever. Star Wars never lets anything go to waste, which is great. Like, but anything gets written down could at some point go, oh, actually, we have a place we could use that over here.
The name Kira was eventually originally going to be Luke's sister. That eventually gets reused to be
Emilia Clarke character.
Clarke character from Solo. Nothing ever goes to waste.
Starkiller was Luke's name, becomes Starkiller Base. Mm-hmm. There's tons of stuff throughout these things, right? I mean, Anakin was going to be Luke was Anakin, right? I mean, like at a certain point, Anakin was the main character, then he became the father. There's tons of stuff like that throughout Star Wars. We've talked about designs becoming other things, and I'm sure even the mythosaur may have been something else at some point. And actually, in this, like we talked about, we don't even really know how much they know what they're doing in this.
But that's part of like the anthropology that I love in these comics is these comics, while not necessarily super well connected to the story group at Lucasfilm that is only just now kind of beginning to exist, right?
Yeah, we've talked about this. They do not yet have the like, now anything under the Star Wars banner is so tightly controlled and run through committees to be like, does this match? Will this conflict? And even still, there's stuff. I was just... I swear we're going to get to this comic, but on that point, even still, there's examples of that because I was just watching an interview with the great Tony Gilroy, showrunner of Andor, who was talking about when he wrote the K2SO stuff. Somebody was like, "Hey, there's actually a comic book that explains their origin stuff," and he's like, "I don't give a shit. I don't care. He goes, I'm just not even going to look at it. I already know what I want to do with them." So even within like our tightly controlled canon, there's still people going like, "That's great, but that I'm not going to let that stop me from writing the plot I'm writing."
My point is that while these comic book writers and artists are flying by their seat of the pants, looking to get the issue out next month, they're establishing bits of lore that other creators down the road will look back on and say like, okay, what is a mythosaur? Well, in this issue of a Star Wars comic that came out in 1983, they're on the planet Mandalore, and there's this big skeleton there. And it kind of looks like the thing that's on Boba Fett's shoulder plate. Mythosaurs are big, giant monsters that used to be alive on Mandalore. That becomes fact going forward. Not because they were intending that in this comic, but because later storytellers will pick up these pieces and try to make them fit together.
Because it's an interesting thing, right? At this time, the idea that these franchises will last decades is not in anyone's mind. That's not a thing that's really happened.
I mean, other than like Superman, right?
Yeah, other than I guess some comic book continuity, right? Superman, even less so Batman at this point, because we have yet to have a Batman movie in 1983. It's an interesting thing about like they don't know. The people writing this comic aren't thinking we are adding to canon. Now you can't not. If you do anything with a licensed character, you are adding, even if it's moved to the Star Wars Legends thing or whatever sub-canon later. You are, at least for the moment, adding to canon. I just don't think that was the weight of that was what anyone was thinking about at this point.
No.
It didn't exist.
Think anyone writing a tie-in comic to a movie franchise wasn't contemplating that. No,
I think the people writing this is totally disposable, right? This is all just meant to be. This matters in as much as we're telling this storyline, and then once we're done, it doesn't exist anymore. I mean, trade paperbacks don't really exist at this point. These issues aren't even really being collected anywhere. Not really. Maybe the occasional compendium or something, but this idea about like now where it's like, each issue builds to a thing, then becomes a book. That doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Comics history, everybody.
But like all of that is to say, let's talk about a very dumb issue of a comic book.
I know. Yeah, we've really built this up, and you're like, we're going to get into the comic. You go like, why do they have to say any of that? It doesn't matter.
The first 3 pages of this are all recap. Let's get into it.
So much previously on Star Wars in this thing.
Death in the City of Bone.
Metal.
And previously on Star Wars, Leia and 3PO have been captured by the Empire.
They sure have, because of Dengar. Goddamn Dengar.
Damn Dengar. Always mucking things up.
By the way, I gotta say, this is just as always, I will point out things like this. Putting the top of the caption in the same color and box as the credits is not a good decision because I skipped over it initially and then was like, wait, why is this continue? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I did the exact same thing.
Yeah, because it's just about where your eye lands.
Is that a coloring issue because of the digital version of this? I don't know.
We can never know. Always know that if we're talking about colors, there's a possibility that there's something like that. But I only have what's in front of me.
Occasionally they will recolor things when they digitize them because of like the original art that they're scanning wasn't colored, and like the version that went to print isn't what we're actually seeing on the digital version.
Colored, if it's a light enough color, it can kind of fade over time. You see that if you look at some older comics. But I will say though, just as a note, if I don't know if that's the case, Marvel does do a great job scanning these though. In general, I do think these are all really nice scans, and I've seen
the fact that we have this sort of like deep catalog from Marvel.
We do take it for granted. I remember when this thing first launched, I was like, what now? you can just read any Marvel comic.
All of them?
And now
the answer eventually was not all of them, but most of them.
No, and it still isn't all of them. And I will say, I do catch myself going like, I've gotten so used to it. I'm like, well, how is this not on there? Absurd. Ridiculous that you don't have the Roy Thomas Conan issues on here. Son of a bitch. It's all crap, even though, but 10, 15 years ago, I would have been like, I can't believe there's a place where I can go and read all the Marvel comics.
And I can put it on my phone anywhere. I can read all of them.
I know, yeah.
I don't have to be in a sealed room somewhere.
Yeah, we all have access to the Marvel archives. Anyway, sorry. Okay. So yeah, they've captured the 3PO, and of course, all of a sudden, 3PO's amazing Black Ops bravery we saw in the last issue was out the window. He's right back to we're doomed.
We'll get into it in the next few pages. Why is no one turning 3PO off?
We know, I mean, Empire's come out. We know you can just flip a switch. And just,
that happens in the first Star Wars.
Yeah. Just turn this son of a bitch off.
Like 3PO in Obi-Wan's house is like, I'm going to turn off for a little while.
That's right. He self turns off, and then in Empire, he is shut off. And you would think the Empire would be like, we do not need this yammering protocol droid off, and then probably just leave him. Why even bring him?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
he's not a viable prisoner.
Leia's captured. We're promised that there's going to be a death battle in the City of Bone, and there kind of is.
I guess. Anyway,
but let's recap the last issue as Dengar's like, by the way, I did all this stuff so the Empire could capture you, and Leia's like, shoot.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we get an entire page devoted to Previously On, as Leia remembers.
Oh, no, the first 3 pages here are, the first page is, by the way, Leia is captured. Second page is Dengar literally explaining the last issue of the comic book, in which Leia gets to Mandalore, they find Dengar, yada, 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 listen to our last episode. And then we get a whole recap from Leia of Previously On all of Star Wars.
I mean, I understand, but like, as we've talked about, I've said this on here a few times before. I can't believe it took the comics as long as it did to figure out that if you just on the cover page with the credits put last time this happened.
Yeah.
Just in words. It's the simplest thing now.
And I'll say this much. The art here, I really like. I think this is a dynamic layout here.
For sure. It's just as I opened the page, thought, oh yeah, that's a dynamic layout, and then went, oh, I know all this, and then went right past it.
Because for our listeners who aren't watching this on the YouTube, it is a silhouette in profile of Leia taking up the whole right side of the page, and then fading into the left side of the page away from her silhouette is a series of 6 panels that are recapping the last couple of issues, in which they learn that Boba Fett had some partners he betrayed. He's got Han Solo, the Rebellion, and Team Millennium Falcon is trying to find the other bounty hunters that Boba Fett betrayed so they can find some lead to where he's waiting with Han Solo to hand off to Jabba the Hutt.
Yes, we're all caught up. You got it.
Leia got here to Mandalore following the trail of Dengar, everyone's favorite bandage-wearing cyborg.
Yeah, sure.
He met a very Irish Mandalorian by the name of Fen Shissa.
As we talk about approaching Banshee levels of Irish.
He's right up there. Then Leia betrays this Mandalorian so that she can rescue Dengar. This never comes up in this issue, that Leia straight up betrayed the Mandalorians.
There's one real quick line about it, but in like a ha ha ha, you screwed me over.
Yeah. Anyway, then Dengar set a signal that brought the Empire in. Okay, we're caught up.
Yeah.
Then there's a huge 2-page. Then there's a huge 2-page spread.
Yeah, and I mean the mythosaur is a big part of that, or the skeleton of it, because yes, they're being taken to what is being used as the Empire's HQ here on Mandalore.
Yeah, because last issue we learned that the Empire sort of taken over Mandalore and using it as a place where they can harvest slaves. And the Empire sucks.
They do. Save your comments, because last week we already talked about this. Obviously, this is inconsistent with what we know about Mandalore going forward. Yep. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
They don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
But
okay.
What they also don't know is any sense of scale.
No, man. These ships are all over the place.
The ships, the size of the people compared to the skeleton, the size of the city we're going to enter when we go inside the skeleton. Because as we approach, we're told in the captions, and Leia is like, my word, what is this? Meanwhile, 3PO's rambling this whole time about like, oh dear, we're doomed.
Just chattering on, my God. And I in general like 3PO for the most part, but here this is the worst kind of use of him.
Yeah, why they don't just like chuck him over the side of their weird hover?
My question I asked earlier, but it's true. They talk about the Leia obviously has this massive bounty on her. Is there a bounty on 3PO?
I mean, I guess maybe. Okay, I'm gonna no prize this. If 3PO is Leia's companion droid, maybe he has information that is also a part of the rebellion that they might turn over to the Empire.
Then back to that point, just turn him off, because they're just going to have to raid his CPU or whatever, right? He's not going to
they're going to dismantle him and dismantle his
hard drive
memory core,
which would be a shame if it happened, but then you could just undo it. Never mind, I won't talk about it anymore.
Fuck. We can't escape that damn movie.
Truly one of the worst things in it, though, is making a big deal about it and then being like, never mind.
Never mind, he's fine.
Never mind, there's no comment. Anyway, as you're talking about the scale,
how many times do they do that with different characters in that film? Because it's 3PO and Chewbacca, right?
Yeah.
And Ben Solo? Because when they gut him on the moon of Endor, then he's just fine and comes back and he's a good guy.
Well, that's because does Rey force heal him? I believe after he gets impaled.
Does he? I guess she does. I don't know. Again, at least we watched movie.
Well, I only saw it the once. You've probably seen it more than I have.
I've seen it twice since then, yeah.
Okay. That's still low, though. Gergoning's only seen a Star Wars movie 3 times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get progressively angrier every time I've watched that movie since, and
See, I know that would happen to me, so I just don't put myself through it.
But I'm starting to see people online talk about, some people appreciate that film. I've seen it, John. I've seen the words.
I mean, look, once again, opinions are opinions, but, that movie suffers from serious issues.
Oh, sure.
And anyway. Once again, this is why we signed that contract.
Yeah.
The scale of the though, as you're talking about, these conceive of, how big are these ships? Because they're on, a troop transport thing, right?
I want to talk about this for a second.
Propeller powered, which is
it's a fan boat moving through the sky.
Yeah. How many propellers do you see in Star Wars? Period. I'm not gonna. I'm willing to go not none, but pretty rare. And the idea. I mean, this just feels like something.
Mostly, you see them as turbines inside of engines,
right? Which that's fine. But this is literally what we are shown here is a little rocket ship with a big propeller on the back that's just going no. I mean, that feels like that should be in some other franchise, right? That should be in some sort of yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really but you're going what's lifting it into the air though?
The Force.
It's going a fan boat has a fan on the back that's pushing it forward. Why is this thing ascending?
That's how powerful the fan is.
I guess so, and it will be used later to question Dengar, which I guess they're useful. But I'm just saying, okay, so my point beyond the propeller thing is, there's a bunch of people on this transport. Then we have these other speeder ships flying out.
Which are cardboard boxes with guns strapped to the front.
I gotta say, these were not the greatest designs.
I want to go to the next page to emphasize what one of these things look like. On the left side, the panel here, you'll see right in the middle, there's one of these things with a little stormtrooper helmet, with the note, like fucking Wilson from Home Improvement.
It's a little... It's a little one-man thing going.
It is a cardboard box like Calvin and Hobbes would ride around in with guns strapped to the front.
This was the ship I made in my backyard when I was 5,
Yeah.
And but the scale of them looks like, and I understand they're trying to make it seem like these things are flying at us, that thing's flying away, but it looks like these things are as big as the thing carrying like 8 people.
And it gets even more confusing once we get inside, because once we swoop inside, apparently they're all extremely tiny compared to the interior of the space, even though we see like people standing on the outside of the space at a totally different scale. Like
the guys, the 2 guys on the leg of the mythosaur.
Oh yeah.
Like that, it doesn't look that big, and then we go inside and it's Death Star size.
Yeah. There's a whole population of slaves in here and like a ship hangar.
It's crazy. This, though, we do get some slave torture in here.
Yeah, good old waterboarding. Not even water. It's like gruel boarding.
You thought water.
Yeah, Leia is led down some corridors, and she passes a couple of purple-clad assholes who are like, don't like your food, slave? Well, maybe let me help you with that. And they get their heads shoved underneath the gruel.
God. And then they're like, hey, whoa, man, we look, I know they're slaves, but we can't just be murdering.
He said, the exact dialogue is, Alf, why so tense? I mean, sure, fun is fun, but you know how dead slaves push up our overhead.
We got to fill out paperwork, man.
And the guy who was drowning the slave goes, yeah, didn't think of that.
Yeah. Never mind. Murder causes problems for us. Anyway.
Murder's expensive.
Yeah, man. Come on. We don't have budget for this.
And Leia is properly disgusted by all of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty despicable, obviously. It's just unbelievable. Atrocity, casual atrocities aside,
The Empire is full of fascist dickbags. No one's questioning that.
Yeah, I know. Who would have guessed? The Empire of all places.
I know. I'm sorry, not to derail this too much, but like some of the backlash I saw against Andor about like the whole sexual assault scene in that show.
Yep.
I understand the people who object to it, who are like, I don't necessarily want that in my Star Wars. I don't go to Star Wars looking to find that there, and are like then triggered by it when it appears suddenly. I can understand that criticism.
That's a different matter than criticizing it as that wouldn't exist.
The Empire would never.
Yeah. or would like that. Yeah, I know this. I saw that where I think I told you about this. I literally saw a guy going, Vader would shut that shit down. What?
Yeah, all right.
Number one, I think Vader cares.
And again,
Palpatine's like, hey, whoa, a little far there, fellas.
This comic doesn't understand that eventually Vader's backstory will be that he was a slave. So it's like, would Vader crack down on all slavery that the Empire participates in? Like, we know he doesn't.
No, and it's a running thing, right? Because it is this whole idea about like, well, is he still Anakin inside? And I would say canonically, no, or at least it's been so severely beat down at this point that, I mean, at peak Imperial age, Anakin might as well be dead, like Obi-Wan said.
Say what you will about the Obi-Wan show. I know it has its detractors. I personally enjoyed it quite a bit. But
same here. I was going to say, you're not going to get any of that from me. Loved it.
The scene between Obi-Wan and Vader in which he's just like, I killed Anakin. I'm what's left. Like, that typifies it right there.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing about, I said, that's always the thing about, that's why Obi-Wan's not lying to him. Darth Vader killed your father.
Yeah.
It's true. And that scene really made that work because he saw firsthand that Anakin said that himself. And maybe Anakin's lying to himself, but that belief is still powering that whole idea. And also, this is, you started this tangent.
I'm sorry.
But I will say, as we've talked about in Andor, they're not even aware of what's happening on that backwater planet.
Yeah.
Even if there was an imperial policy about don't commit sexual assault, which, like I said, I think they're just not saying anything. I don't think they're encouraging, but they're not discouraging either. How is that being enforced in the nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. Back to this book. We got Leia tromping through these. Speaking of Vader, actually, Leia's being led through to the leader of this Imperial outpost, someone called the Suprema.
I know. Were you like me and going like, what is that now? And the book will answer it.
I mean, insofar as there's a guy whose name is the Suprema.
Yeah, I mean, and they say this. They said Suprema, and I was like, wait, what? And then I was at least glad that Leia goes, wait, what? What's a Suprema? So I'm like, okay, good. We're also not acting like this is not a moth, you know?
Sure. Yeah. The first thing that popped into my head, and it's only because I'm too deep in the weeds on this, is you call something the Suprema on Mandalore. My first thought is, you mean Mandalore the Supreme? The leader of the legions that fought the war against the Old Republic?
Of course, that's what Mike Ergani thought. But yeah, you do. We have obviously much more information about the hierarchy of Mandalore.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Mandalore is such. The thing that's so funny reading this comic now is that no one knows anything about Mandalore, and now we exist where we are currently in what's coming out of Star Wars, and for the past maybe 5 to 8 years, Mandalore is so centrally important to the current story being told. That it's very.
When you say Mandalore, do you mean the planet, the culture, or the guy? And you just have to say yes.
Yeah, all of the above is the answer. Yeah, but yeah, it's true. Anyway, so yeah, she's being brought to the Suprema, and they're like, oh man. And when they go into his office, this book is always just like, how do we get Vader in? How do we get Vader in? How do we put Vader in this?
What if he was a decoration?
Because for a second, I'm like, wait a minute, what? He's on a conference call? I thought he was maybe like actually talking to Vader. And I'm just like, oh my god. And then they're just like, no, this dude. Is this basically meant to be like you go into a Nazi's house and he's got like a Hitler poster?
I mean, basically, yeah.
Or probably more like a Himmler.
What happened?
Vader would not be the Hitler of it.
Name your confirmer of atrocities. Anyway,
whatever it is,
this guy has a full-sized hologram of Vader in his office.
I just love that dude.
I love his style. I love what he does. He's just
so
the
big,
best.
Man. Check it out, my main man, DV.
Meanwhile, Vader, if he ever came in here, was like, oh boy, this guy's yikes.
Oh, not one of these again. Another fanboy.
But revealing out of the shadows, the Suprema is this big lizard.
I was not prepared for what the Suprema is. He does not look like a character from Star Wars. He's very cartoony.
He looks like an Infantino alien is what he looks like.
100% he does. And you just do imagine that he talks like this. Hello there, princess.
Whenever we get a good close-up look of his face, he's just got this big canid head that's constantly got drool coming out from between the fangs. He's big and purple. He's got literal, like, flame-shaped pupils.
I mean, it's how can something be over and under designed at the same time?
And he's wearing like a green Doctor Doom cape, and yeah, he's got big claw hands. It's a whole thing.
He's very silly looking. This is not a threatening character.
Yeah, and it's so weird because you never see Imperial monster men, really.
No.
Imperial leaders are always like put together stuffy English guys or Grand Admiral Thrawn, and there's no in between.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. And you're just like, and this guy, once again, at least the way this is portrayed is just like, yeah, this guy is in charge of Mandalore. So yeah, let the weird guy run Mandalore. Let that weirdo run it. We don't really care about it.
If he was an evil guy who was in charge of like a separatist army in the Clone Wars, honestly, it would track a little better.
Oh, 100%. 100%. There's a lot more strange alien creatures in that organization.
Yeah, I love.
I'm looking at you, Newt Gunray.
There's Newt Gunray. I'm thinking of from the show the what was that guy's name? The spider guy that Anakin fights.
Yes,
Trench.
Yes, super weird dude.
And he slowly gets more and more like robotized as the series goes on.
I do like. I mean,
good job. show.
Yeah. Clone Wars has some great designs. Talk about the exact opposite of this. There's so many cool, weird, legitimately unsettling characters in that. That's what this guy is supposed to read as, though. I think he's written to be like, Leia should be like, oh, dear God, what monstrosity is before me? And you look at it going like, I don't know, this big cartoon purple lizard dude with claw hands?
But what immediately undercuts it is their first interaction is the Suprema being like, you may call me master. Would you like a chair? And then anyway. Leia immediately coming back going, I have a better idea, Suprema. Why don't you sit on it?
Yeah.
So, like, Leia saying basically go fuck yourself, right?
Yeah. I hit him with the Happy Days sit on it. That's for
and then they have a bit of a back and forth where anyone who captures Leia is going to say, ooh, a fiery one. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we've seen it before. I like that in a human being. It sizzles so nicely when squelched.
Gross.
Squelched, by the way, good word.
Yeah. But, so Leia's been delivered to this guy, Dengar, who's on the conference call, I guess, for this. Because he's on the video screen in the back.
Hold on, I have to take this. This is my boy Dengar. What's up?
I love that the Suprema is such like he has a hologram of Vader in his office. He loves Dengar. This guy sucks.
He really does. Yeah, it's pretty bad. He's like the worst kind of dark side fanboy in real, he's just like, yeah, I love Vader and Dengar and ooh, Maul. If he existed at this point in canon, I'd also be all about that guy. He's pretty metal.
So he's talking about like, hey, you're doomed. I'm the best. Also, anything your like Mandalorian friends are going to do is nothing. Cause look, that dead guy who we talked about last issue, Toby Dalla, I've got his armor in my office.
Yeah. Check it out. Yeah. He's just like, yeah, pretty badass, right?
This guy is the armor. The Dwight Schrute of the Empire.
Absolutely is what he is. Just it's all about the aesthetics of seeming. I also like he goes, "Hey, come on! The Empire put me in charge out here. I must be pretty good at my job." He literally says that. He goes, "Would they put me in charge if I was incompetent as you think I am? I don't think so. The Emperor and I are besties."
They've talked once.
Yeah, Sheev and I, man, we go way back.
If he ever said his first name to his face, he would die.
Old Sheev. We went to college together, actually.
I call him Shishi.
Yo, Shishi, what's up, babe? That's what this. I mean, there is a way that I would like this character written, and there are other characters in Star Wars like this. I mean, we've talked about. I have a great enjoyment. I shouldn't say love because he's an awful person, but I do enjoy director Krennic because of this. Sure. Like the idea of the guys who are a big deal in the rooms they're in, but aren't, they talk a big game. And that is something that we've seen more of in Star Wars. And I would like it if this guy was written more that way. We're giving him that because it's stupid that he is any kind of threat.
Right. And he's just total villain of the week here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But he is just going like, yeah, I'm pretty big deal in the Empire.
So he says, take them to the special detention cells, which later we'll learn are just detention cells.
We reserve the specialist of rooms for the princess here. And then I gotta say, get ready.
Now we're gonna get to the wildest, like, how the frack did this happen moment in this comic.
Maybe, I mean, in the running, I can't say definitively because we've covered a lot. In the running for the stupidest moment in this comic?
I don't know about stupidest, but it's definitely like, this doesn't make any sense.
The shoelace line?
Not the shoelace line, just Fen Shissa being here at all.
No, I was talking about the shoelace joke specifically.
Oh, that's pretty dumb.
Yeah, as just really bad dialogue.
Because Leia's being led away by two stormtroopers who, let's get our timeline straight here. These two stormtroopers, let's go back a couple of pages here, are the same two stormtroopers that have been escorting Leia since they got off of their transport to come here.
Yeah, this would argue that Fen had infiltrated instantly.
Yes.
Even though he was actively unconscious when all this happened.
Correct. Because one of the two stormtroopers that are escorting Leia turns and says, "Hey there, did you know your shoelaces were untied?" And the other stormtrooper going, wait a minute, I don't have shoelaces.
I mean, look, we know there's many a dumb stormtrooper. It's so stupid. It's a commonplace thing.
Bad.
This guy is like, did they send like the brain damaged stormtroopers to Mandalore? Because like, what's wrong with you?
Okay,
wait a minute.
Look,
number one, the idea of someone saying shoelaces in Star Wars is wild enough.
I'm going to give this book the emphasis it deserves by reading this verbatim. Yeah. Because like I said it like hyperbolically of like, wait a minute, I don't have shoelaces. I'm going to lead the exact text, and our YouTube viewers can see this on the page.
Yep.
The other stormtrooper, when said your shoelaces are untied, says, "Gosh, no, thanks. I guess I must have. Hey, wait a minute. Stormtrooper boots don't have laces." That's exactly what it says on the page.
And I mean, here's the thing: you could do the exact same thing without being as dumb, right? If you just go like, "Hey, you're, carry, whatever." They have like belts, right?
Oh, hey, man, you dropped your comm link.
Yeah, anything like that. Instead, they're like, no. This is the kind of thing where it's like, we often talk about how much it's a running Star Wars joke amongst any fans of it, right? There's just like, my God, how did the Empire do so well with these incompetent morons of soldiers? Stormtroopers are the least threatening, but it's like, but don't go out of your way to make them even dumber. Like that's the thing where it's just like,
almost okay, that's the joke, right? You have that like old Star Wars fan film Troops that's like the cops parody.
Maybe my favorite Star Wars fan film,
where like they accidentally kill Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru due to like a traffic stop.
And you get the guy. I mean, I do love the bit with the troopers in the Mandalorian where they're trying to shoot at the thing and it's not, like the can in front of them. And that's all good and well. But like once again, there's something wrong with this guy. And also that Fenn here knows this guy would be stupid enough to fall for that.
Because then Fenn thwacks him, though as this guy is getting thwacked, he's going to Kazach Fenn in the head. Stormtrooper helmet actually holding up to a laser blast here.
Which is crazy. That violates any canon I've never seen Stormtrooper armor remotely deflect anything.
So when he has to remove his damaged helmet, though, we can reveal, hey, it's Fenn Shissa, the Mandalorian protector guy who was part of a team of 3 that used to work with Boba Fett.
Boba Fett's friends.
It's the Boba friends.
Yeah. That was pitched as Saturday morning show. And then, literally the comic acknowledges what we're saying. Because Leia says, Fenn Shissa, but how? And he goes, why, that's quite a tale. And then it's just, we did it. That's the tale. We're here.
Yep. That's right, Missy. Me and my lads were following your trail when we came across your running with them Imperial war dogs. So I whipped up a quick plan, slugged one on the perimeter of the scouts, and took his place, which brings us to the present situation.
Which, I did by the way, he would have had to have done this in like 5 minutes from starting from being unconscious.
Right. Which
he's whipped up a quick plan. Once again, he was unconscious when they were taken. This meant that he immediately got up, recognized the situation. And, it is insane.
He's a Mandalorian protector, John. He's the best of the best.
What can't they do? Top of the line.
Top of the line.
And don't be looking for me Lucky Charms while you're at it.
Okay, now we're dipping into culturally insensitive.
Hey, they started. Because this was such a culturally.
I don't think the Irish people started it.
But anyway, sorry, this was the line in here, though, where he turned to her and still acted like a stormtrooper. And then he was like, couldn't resist after you gave me that. Oh, and his line is very, after that clop on the noggin.
Oh, yeah. So, like, he's kind of acknowledging the fact that Leia beat him into unconsciousness.
Yeah, but it's like just a throwaway, all's forgiven. Now we're even. Not really.
Yeah. So, they would not be in this position if it wasn't for Leia.
Also, knowing Leia, he's lucky that even in that moment, she didn't like snap his neck based on how much stormtrooper killing she's been doing.
Oh, I mean, yeah, and she's going to get to be doing more. But now they're going to go free Toby Dalla, who I guess is alive.
Yeah, which once again is kind of like, wait a minute, didn't the Suprema kind of imply that he's dead?
Yeah, 100%.
But now he's like, no, which really further takes the teeth out of this guy as any kind of threat.
Yeah. So they're going to play the old, one of us is injured routine on the stormtroopers guarding the cells down here.
It doesn't work. This is a Thor tactic called get help.
No, get help is then throw this guy at the stormtrooper.
You're right. Get help is cooler.
No, this is, it didn't work. Let's have a whispered conversation real quick so I can just high kick this guy into unconsciousness.
I just love that this comic refuses to they do something clever and they're like, or seemingly clever, although it's an incredibly stupid plan, because why would they, when Leia's like, why don't you run off and I'll just take over? Why would he be like, sure, Leia, you keep an eye on, wait a minute.
Well, because, Leia even says, there's a slave revolt happening, and the stormtrooper on guard says, no, there isn't, the alarm would be going off.
And they're like, got him.
What do you think about this panel layout, and this and on the next page? Because we have these weird white, I don't know what to call them.
I have no idea what they are trying to achieve with it.
They're like sectional gutters inside the panel?
I guess, but they're also not really. I mean, because it's not like anything is actually happening between these gutters. It's just breaking up the image for no reason.
Because over the course of this and the next page, they get into Dalla's cell and they free him. Or, Toby Dalla's cell and they free him. And then the only thing I can think of artistically is that over the course of the last page where they knock out the stormtrooper and this page where they free Toby, they're escaping a prison, so the white bars are supposed to represent prison cell bars. And then by the time they're free and running down the stairs, those bars disappear.
No, I think that's as good a guess as anything. It's just, why? I don't like it. I don't know what it's achieving. It just
the artist wants to have fun. I don't know.
I mean, it definitely feels like I was trying something.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but then my response is, and it didn't work.
Yeah. But anyway, here's Toby.
Here he is, and he's just as Irish. Well, maybe not just as, but a little bit less, but still Irish.
Which gives... Okay, I have to answer this question now. So, what did we see of Boba Fett? Boba Fett, most of his lines are delivered in Empire Strikes Back, a movie that has already come out as of the writing of this.
Yeah.
And he kind of
this sort of gravelly
he's no good to me dead.
He's no good to me dead, right? He's sort of like a tough guy, gangstery character.
Yeah. Eventually he'll be voiced by Tamora Morrison, but he's not right now.
So he'll have like that sort of guttural Kiwi
gravelly sort of.
Yeah, but even still, you're like, what? Why the idea that they're writing Mandalorians is sounding Irish?
Yeah. Like, what in Boba Fett's original presentation? Because these two guys, given the backstory we're told here, fought and, killed with Boba Fett for years.
Yeah.
And are all kind of from the same culture and background.
Totally. I mean, these guys...
make them Irish?
They argue these guys are even more hardcore Mandalorians, right?
Because they never left. Yeah, Boba Fett gave up.
Boba Fett's a traitor as far as they're concerned,
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea. It is so weird. When this guy also started talking with that dialect, I was like, what? I had the same thought. What are you doing?
I've been planning to leap from that ceiling fixture for days, and I could have took your head off.
It feels like, and I think this is just it. It's just like, Claremont does this.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it is just fun with dialects at this point, right? They're just like, hey, Claremont does that. That seems fun. Let's also do that.
Look, Claremont is widely lauded as a writer. One thing no one's praising him on is his phonetically written accents.
It is one of the... we're both massive Claremont fans, of course. Bow down to the greatness of Claremont. But that was always one of the weaknesses for me of it. It's just like, but sometimes you're having so much fun, I don't know what this person is saying.
Anytime Banshee or Gambit are speaking, I have to slow down and pronounce words.
Okay. Yeah, God, that's so Cajun, Remy.
I'm not sure what a Thieves Guild is, but I'll figure it out.
Oh, I mean, and all props to Channing Tatum for committing fully to talking like that on screen. My man is doing the Lord's work. Anyway,
yeah, they free this guy who looks like an extra action figure that would come with a vehicle, but isn't a named character.
Well, as you brought up before we started recording, you never get a good look at what his face looks like.
So there's a thing that happens in comic books where a character is drawn in the background of a scene, and the artists will put less detail on faces for characters who aren't in the foreground.
Yes.
That is what Toby Dalla always looks like, even when he's in the foreground.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, I'm scrolling through. The only thing I can say about this is he's got a big head.
He's a bald white guy in a green jumpsuit.
Right, but look at how big the top from his eyebrows up. How tall he's heading to Conehead territory. I
mean, look, as a guy who in the last year started shaving his head regularly,
you have
more forehead than you think you do, but not like this.
This isn't even forehead. This is just head. It's like he's heading to like leader territory. It looks like his head is expanding.
He's approaching Uatu the Watcher.
Yeah, that's it exactly. Yeah. Anyway, they're gonna fight their way through this. Oh, also, this confused me as I was reading it last night, and I tracked down why that is, which is they're fighting because this is all happening. There's like these 5 panels on either side of this big action piece in the middle, right?
Where this big double page spread where there's 10. There's 11 panels total, 5 on one side of the page, 5 on the other, and a big central panel that is like their daring escape.
Right. Okay. So on the left side of it, on the panels where they're escaping, they're shooting through stuff, and in one of these panels they capture Dengar, but it doesn't look like Dengar.
No.
And that was why when they're in the transport thing and they're like, quick, tie up Dengar, I had to go back and go, when did they capture Dengar? And I had to go back. The guy
that they say is Dengar looks like the other Mandalorian soldiers that are attacking from the outside.
Exactly. And so that was why the only thing I was like, oh, Toby calls him Bounty Man. I guess that was supposed to be Dengar, but apparently Art didn't get that note.
There's a lot that's happening here that is compressed really quick. Like, the gutters here are doing so much work because...
way too much.
They're escaping. Fenn shoots up a signal flare out a window, I guess, that they're next to. Which signals the Mandalorian freedom fighters outside to start attacking from the outside, which causes a distraction, which allows them to capture Dengar, which then tips off the Suprema, who starts shutting all the blast doors, which then lets them steal a spaceship. And again, most of this happening off-panel. The panels as we see them are Leia and company crouching and planning, Fenn at a window that we did not see before shooting a signal flare, Mandalorian freedom fighters outside seeing the signal flare saying, attack! 4th panel is Toby Dalla attacking someone who is clearly not Dengar, but they are saying is Dengar. 5th panel is the Suprema going, time to close the blast doors. Central panel is everybody in a spaceship or in a like speeder vehicle that they have already stolen.
Yes.
Shooting and flying their way through this hangar with stormtroopers shooting and everything exploding.
Yes.
6th panel is Leia pointing at a thing. 7th panel is them shooting the thing, which then I guess frees all the slaves because Leia in the 9th panel is like, Men of Mandalore, rise up, take your freedom.
Yeah.
We devote the 10th panel to some guy falling in a sludge pit.
Of course.
Who is a slaver. And then last panel is them all walking out of the car, leaving Dengar tied up with ropes.
This screams of, we have this much story and this many pages. How do we just condense?
Yeah, 100%.
And don't do that, folks. I got to say, look, I have very, very limited experience writing for comics, as in nothing I've written has been published. But one of the things I would say is, like, you've got to be aware of how much a page can convey. This is too much.
Yeah, and compare that to the next page where they're breaking into the Suprema's office. They don't know how to open the door, so Leia just, I guess, explodes it with her brain? I'm not quite sure what happens here.
Yeah, I have no idea what happens.
The door just explodes and Leia is standing there with a gun. Maybe, I guess, she shot the door at its critical weak point and it just exploded like a boss from frickin' Legend of Zelda.
I mean, that's possible, except for we never see any image of her gun firing. And I also just like the idea that Fenn is like, oh, the door's locked, it's all over.
But then the Suprema's just like, haha.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Haha. You'll never defeat me. I'm the guy who pretended to have killed Toby Dollop for some reason.
But now I'm going to shoot him for real.
Yeah, got him this time.
So he shoots, the Suprema shoots Toby. Toby then grabs him so that Fenn can leap over and do a flying kick.
This is my favorite line of dialogue. Toby has grabbed the Suprema's arm, and the Suprema's like, what's this? I can't move my weapon. Because there's just a guy holding you. It's not. He acts like they're doing it with the Force or something. No, the guy's just holding his arm. What are you? I'm stymied.
Anyway, Fenn kicks him in the head.
This insane kick, and
is about to kill him.
Well, we should mention though, there's some salty language here, so be careful.
Oh, right, a dung-eaten, rat-smelling, cold-livered son of a dog.
Son of a dog. I didn't see a mature reader's warning on this. That's some rough language. Graphic language. Son of a dog, you say? Wow.
So yeah, Fenn's about to kill this guy by like beating him to death with the butt of his blaster.
I mean, it is like, okay.
When and Leia, in the strangest move, says, stop, we might need him.
And if they're Leia, the most bloodthirsty of our characters...
Like, need him for what? Especially if they're just going to leave him here.
Yeah. I have no idea.
Anyway.
Like, whoa, this is still a book for kids!
Toby spends this whole page dying, and he's still not even quite dead yet.
Oh, no, because he's still going to do one more thing, even though he's clearly been shot in the heart.
And his chest is a smoking crater.
But he's still like, but with my final breaths, I must tell you. And then, look... There's no way to read this other than this is a loving homosexual relationship, right?
No, I'll not be leaving you. Not alone.
Yeah.
You got one chance. Go on now.
Yeah.
I ask of you one thing, dear Fenn Shin. Live. Just live.
And then like, I love you, Toby. I'm saying, my point is, just lean in. I mean, I know it's the 80s, so they can't. But, like, it is just like, this is the most, like, devoted love we've seen in this comic is between these two Mandalorians.
Not since Senator Greyshade and Mastercom have we seen such devoted...
well, nothing will beat that. Never question that love. All right?
So, anyway, Fenn and Leia and 3PO leave because mission accomplished, even though they didn't even kill the guy?
Well, the end of this book is so weird when they're just like, oh, yeah, we kind of didn't accomplish it. Well, we'll get to literally nothing happening in the end of this. So anyway, they run out of there. They're like, we got to get going. They've still got Dengar tied up. And this is a coloring error, I think. Doesn't it look like Dengar has a mustache in that last?
Oh, on the bottom right hand here? Yeah, it absolutely does.
His upper lip is slightly darker than the rest of his skin.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he has a Ron Swanson mustache.
But it does look like he's got like a sandy blonde mustache. Anyway, they're flying out of here. 3PO is just continuing. He literally has got hand to mouth going.
Yeah. So here's my biggest problem with this page and the next page.
Yeah.
God, we're ragging on this book so much, but there's a lot to rag on.
It's pretty bad. This, I gotta say, we've seen worse, but this is pretty consistently not good.
So they say that they've been hit. We never see that. They say we're being chased. We never see what's chasing them. They're flying around a place that we don't see, they say that the blast doors are shut. We never see those.
Comic.
And then a bunch of guys on the floor say, "Hey, fly this way. We'll help you escape." And Leia's like, can we trust these guys? And Fenn's like, do we have a choice?
I mean, so this is an interesting comic that, like, if you're teaching visual storytelling, here's a perfect example of what not to do. And I mean that literally, like legitimately. There is so much here that is said, not shown in an expressly visual medium.
So when we get to this next page, that is all just action of, okay, I had to really stop and like try to figure out what happened here. Because what it looks like is all these guys throw this vat of slop up in the air, which is already an insane motion that they're doing here.
Yep.
And then it slaps into the front of this shuttlecraft, which then explodes in a fiery doom ball. I had to like rewind my brain and go, wait, did these guys just betray Leia and kill everybody?
No, these are the people that are chasing them, right?
Right, but that's so unclear because we never see who's chasing them.
Right. And we
until
never
they explode.
We never, like, it's so weird how much of it is just the interior of the cockpit on the ship, as opposed to pulling out and showing one ship, a second ship, anything like that. And then, so they throw a big bucket of slop on. I'm sorry, it's a trough. It's a trough.
It's a trough of slop.
It's a slop trough. Is thrown at the ship that crashes it, because I guess the idea is that it hit the windshield and they went, "Oh shit!" and crashed into the ground.
I mean, the stormtrooper has a whole ass dialogue bubble here that says, "Aig, I can't see. Where am I going? Gotta switch to autopilot before kraboom."
Yeah.
And then we see his charred, burning corpse inside the wreckage of this bottom right-hand panel.
Hey, for kids, man.
It's for kids. Anyway, back in the Suprema's office, we see Toby has rallied, I guess.
Hey, man. He came back from that blast to the heart.
At least long enough to put on his Mandalorian armor. And
if he's going to die, he's going to die as a Mandalorian, sir.
Well, yeah, because he says, like, the armor's not going to save my life, but this here uniform, well, it makes me for a Mandalorian protector, and I think it's only fitting that I wear it while protecting.
I mean, okay. I'm not against this in concept. It just feels like when they cut back here, I did think what we were just saying, which is like, he's still alive?
Meanwhile, Leia pointing at a thing we can't see off panel going, look, the blast doors are open.
I know, I was like, what blast doors? And then I guess we'll see them in a second.
Yeah, because in the final panel of this page, they shroom out of the blast doors. They leave. Meanwhile, back in the office, Toby is like, oh, good. They survived.
Yeah.
Good. But now, the Suprema's like, you're insane. My men are going to go through there and kill everybody. But Toby's like, but what happens if I reclose the door?
Well, here's the thing. And he goes, that's insane. If you close the doors, my men are going to crash into it. Okay, I follow that, which will then destroy this entire place. Why would that happen?
Because the bones are flammable, John.
Well, this is the thing that you forget about, right? Because of the way it's depicted, is you're like, wait a minute. So they're still inside of a skeleton at this point, this whole thing.
And they're hyper flammable bones.
I just don't understand. Because he's like, if you close the blast doors, my men will crash into it, ... and then somehow we'll all die for some reason.
Because the comics book's got to end in an explosion. Because, on the next page, everything's got to explode. That's just what happens.
It does. And this is also meant to be the, like, well, I'm dead already, but I'm taking you with me, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, Toby's last great act is to close a door so that people can't stop in time.
I know, I can't, but once again, it's like a simple rewrite of just like, don't hit that, it'll overload the reactor, and that would be the thing, right? And I'd be like, okay, fine, yeah, that makes sense. Nope. You're going to close that door, they're going to slam into it, and then all of us blow up for unknown reasons.
Until, at last, the petrified citadel lies silent, impotent, a once mighty bastion, now a litter of rubble, of bone, and of dark slaver blood.
Dude, you cannot. How silly this comic has been, and then trying to end it on like, and many died that day. You're just like, okay, all right.
The grim monument to a slaver's world.
Oh, okay, all right, Claremont.
Anyway, yeah, let's use our fan boat to try to intimidate Dengar.
Oh yeah, we also it's like lest we forget, all of this was to get information about where Han Solo is.
Dengar with the most haunted look on his face as his face is jammed towards the back of his propeller.
God. I mean,
this
look,
turns into a like intense like Vietnam comic that Marvel was producing in the 70s.
Absolutely. This is the Nam, man. Yeah. And so yeah, he's holding him there and he's like, "You better talk." And all of this to get to, and of course, I actually did read this last night and went, of course, he's not the guy with the information they need.
But he heard something about Boba Fett hiding out in the Anga system, but I don't even know who he was talking to or if that means anything.
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully Lando has more luck.
Yeah, because
so all of this was basically for nothing.
Because, yeah, Fenn wraps up with, like, "Me best friend's gone. The blow we dealt to the slavers was crippling, but not final. And we still didn't get you no hope to find your boyfriend. I'm so sorry, Leia."
And then Leia gets real dour here, where she's just like, well, sometimes the bad guys win. And I'm like, I don't think we can call this a win for the bad guys. Like, they're not destroyed, but how is this a win for the bad guys?
Insofar as that Leia's no closer to finding Han.
I guess. But she also knew that there was like a 1 in 3 chance of that.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, they're sad for a moment, but she's like, we'll have to just keep fighting.
Cut 2. I did not expect this. It's the wheel.
Epilogue. In a sparsely populated star system far removed from Mandalore, there floats a unique space station known as the Wheel.
We know the Wheel
is the hub of the galaxy's gaming trade, and as such has been visited by veteran gambler Lando Calrissian many times.
I gotta say, I mean, I'm glad to have Lando back. But yeah, the Wheel, I'm like, man, this comic is really going to try to make the Wheel happen. Of course, the Wheel will eventually just become Canto Bight, right? If you're looking at the gambling hub of...
Yes and no. The Wheel still exists in the canon. I'm going to say that much.
Okay, but in terms of being the, like, foremost
sure.
gambling hub of the galaxy is Canto Bight.
Yeah.
Which I do still think is a cool idea. People cannot like that movie, that's fine, but I do think the idea of a gambling planet in Star Wars is cool. But yeah, back on the Wheel is, here's Lando Calrissian, and Chewie's got a guy against the wall. This is, I say what his name is, Vorel.
It's Vorel.
Right.
Remember Vorel? That name I said at the top of the show?
Yeah.
He's a weird vampire guy that Chewie's going to tear his head off.
Yeah. And he's like, you better tell me where Bossk is.
And he says something, Grishon, Nakcha, Kratot Vachinek.
I thought you'd see the light now. Where is he? And he says...
And then whatever he says, Lando's like, oh man, not there.
Not there. Never there. Uh-oh. The search for Han Solo continues in the Stenak Shuffle.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. I don't know what that means. It's not as exciting as when they said Mandalore, you know.
Yeah, look, we saw the Wheel again. That's fun. Next issue, we're going to get some Lando and Chewie stuff. So, you know. We'll take what we can get.
It's more exciting than when Leia brought 3PO with her. Which we've continued to say is a baffling decision. Although, once again, he did briefly do some like covert ops in there, which was weird.
I will say this much. Also, next issue might be a bit of a letdown because you know how the best way to sell Star Wars comics is to put Han Solo in them?
Oh, yeah.
So, you know the only way to get Han Solo in a comic book right now would be? Flashbacks.
Yeah.
To things we didn't see before.
That makes sense because of Lando having history with this place, which conceivably could mean that Han Solo had history with it too. Once again, they are just going like, how do we get Vader? How do we get Han Solo? Like our two most popular characters, and they're not really involved in this plot. So
yeah. Next issue is going to be a little bit of a derailment.
Well, and also it's another thing where I'm like, I'd read this and went, well, obviously that won't lead to it too, because there's still a third thing. Luke's going to have to find some information to get on too.
Kind of. We'll get to it. Anyway, next issue, we're going to continue to tread some water because, Return of the Jedi hasn't happened yet.
Because we have to, yeah.
This comic we do have a new writer and creative team.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting that would happen mid-story.
It's this 70 is smacks above fill-in issue.
Okay, so it kind of continues the story. I do see, yeah. Sorry, I just looked at the cover for the next issue, and literally in big letters it says, featuring Han Solo, everyone's favorite character. Kids, you've all got his action figure. Get his comic.
But yeah, we will cover that next week.
Yes, we will. But if you want to hear more from us, and once again, who wouldn't? You can head over to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/punchup, and you get cool exclusive bonus content as well as help out the show and all the shows on the Punch Up Entertainment Network. We greatly appreciate our patrons, which is ever growing, which we appreciate.
Yeah. We really do. It helps us continue doing what we love here at Punch Up, and that includes doing stuff over on YouTube, because at youtube.com/@punchupentertainment, you can watch this show, read along with us, see all the things we're talking about that are kind of the problems with visual storytelling, because those are sometimes difficult to convey in a purely audio medium. But on YouTube, you can watch along with us and read those comics as we do.
Absolutely.
While you're there, please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know in the comments below what your favorite oft-forgotten Star Wars location is, because we love the wheel, and I'm sure once upon a time Mandalore was kind of in that list of forgotten Star Wars corners of the galaxy.
It's weird to think about, right? That people reading this comic wouldn't be like, woo, Mandalore. It'd be like,
Mandalore? Really? That's a cut.
Yeah, okay, sure, yeah. Well, I'll read about that.
But yeah, over on the YouTube page, you can find all of our shows there, as well as some of our YouTube exclusive stuff like Punch Up Plays. Elliot Lewis and I just finishing up Mass Effect 1. We're about to move into the dark middle chapter that is Mass Effect 2. Can't wait.
Oh, yeah. You get cool, all kinds of stuff over there.
Indeed. But I think that is going to do it for us this week. As always, I have been Mike Gergoni.
I'm John Campbell.
And remember, may the panel be with you.